The mid-90s were an interesting time in American professional martial arts. No-holds-barred competition was rapidly earning a reputation as the most realistic form of combat sports, and even kickboxing was slowly shedding the old standard of above-the-waist rules in favor of Asian styles. In the thick of this was Dale Apollo Cook, fighter and sports entrepreneur. Cook is widely hailed as a legend of kickboxing but is less readily recognized for his work as a promoter, in which capacity he was something of a pioneer in the United States. His UKF and ACE organizations frequently experimented with multiple types of fighting on individual shows, featuring kickboxing alongside MMA, grappling, Muay Thai and more. This didn't really catch on in his home country, but would do increasingly successful business in Japan. The Universal Kickboxing Federation was established by Cook around the turn of the decade to promote world championship competition in Japan, and while the UKF doesn't seem to have become a promotional powerhouse comparable to its better-known competition, its titles were esteemed and its champions included superstars like Andy Hoog and Masaaki Satake. What was more, it had the clout to run a high-profile show like the one we're looking at right now. It's the UKF's USA vs. Japan event from June 10, 1994, taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. As the name suggests, the event was promoted as a showdown between American and Japanese fighters. This was a common format at the time for Japanese shows, though what's unique here is that the UKF drew its Asian competitors from a variety of clubs and promotions, not just a single company. 5 matches took place, 4 kickboxing bouts and 1 mixed martial arts fight, and all were title contests. Let's get right into it, and see how Dale Cook's vision for international competition played out in the oil capital of the world. We open with a contest for the UKF International Super Lightweight Championship between challenger Kiyotaka Kato and champion Chris Mack. Like all kickboxing bouts of the night, this will be 5 rounds of 3 minutes each, with Japanese rules. Low kicks, knees and clinching are legal. Kiyotaka Kato is 139 pounds and boasts an unbeaten record of 15 wins with 11 knockouts. Despite wearing the Muay Thai Mongkol, Kato represents the Dai Do Juku school, a hybrid style of karate mixing striking and grappling techniques. Along with fellow alumnus Yoshinori Nishi, Kato is the art's prime ambassador, taking his style to competitions under Muay Thai, shoot boxing and Sansho rules. Chris Mack, 138 pounds, also claims an unbeaten record of 20 wins with 14 knockouts. He is a martial arts instructor in Arizona, affiliated with the Nidokai School, another hybrid fighting style that's seemingly lent itself well to professional competition. He enters with a height advantage and greater professional experience, but it's up to him to effectively leverage this against his opponent. Round 1. The pace of the match is immediately set with the fighters throwing quick and rangy kicks. Mack slips while delivering a flying knee, and barely blocks a roundhouse kick to the head. Kato kicks away a spin kick, then blocks a straight punch. The crowd cheers when Kato goes down following a 3-punch combo, but it's ruled a slip. Kato returns with strikes of his own, causing Mack to repeatedly back away so as to keep fighting from a distance. He blocks a reverse spinning heel kick before coming forward with a big combination that's countered with a leg grab. Mack lands a front kick off the ropes but inadvertently strikes a low blow. Kato recovers and swipes Mack's face with a roundhouse kick. Mack sinks a strike to the face but it doesn't slow Kato's offense, which again only stops because of a slip. Round 2. The fighters demonstrate greater respect for each other's ability, but the action slams to a halt when Mack lands a second low blow, resulting in a 1-point deduction. Mack slips as he blocks a low kick, then is knocked against the ropes by a stiff roundhouse kick to the forearms. He blocks a spinning back fist but Kato backs away from his retaliation. Mack lands a hard low kick, then another, but goes down following a delayed reaction to Kato's retaliatory roundhouse kick. He fails to rise, and Kiyotaka Kato wins the match via knockout, 1 minute and 58 seconds into the second round, to become the new champion. The abrupt ending of the bout comes as a surprise and disappointment, as it's unclear what actually caused Chris Mack's knockdown. But regardless whether it was a single strike or the accumulation of previous damage, this was an exciting match and a perfect way to open the show. Low blows aside, the non-stop action and superior athleticism makes this contest easy to enjoy. The stakes rise for the night's second match, a showdown for the vacant UKF World Featherweight Championship. It's Masahiko Nakashima versus Teddy Padilla. Nakashima is 125 pounds, has a perfect record of 9 wins with 9 knockouts, and is announced as the All Japan Featherweight Champion. He's likely representing the Martial Arts Japan Kickboxing Federation, or MAJKF. Padilla is likewise 125 pounds, arrives with the more seasoned record of 24-1 with 17 knockouts, and reigns as the UKF US Featherweight Champion. Padilla is the clear veteran of the bout, with a career that goes back at least until the late 80s, but it's already been demonstrated that Team America can't take its competition lightly. Round 1 begins after an intense mid-ring stare-down. Nakashima opens with kicks at all levels before Padilla comes back with punches to the face. Nakashima tries to sink some knees in the clinch, but Padilla retaliates by punching him into the corner. He impressively strikes his way out of another clinch. Nakashima goes down in a slip, then takes a spinning back fist to the face. We see the most dynamic fall of the night as Nakashima goes down while avoiding a right hook, but again it's ruled a slip. Nakashima takes a 1-2 combo but saves himself from a knockdown by landing on the ropes, only to absorb a 3-punch combo. Padilla sinks a spinning back kick and peppers the Japanese champ with counter strikes. Round 2. Nakashima targets Teddy's left leg, but he's thrown off his game plan by a right hook. A left hook lands flush on his chin but without much power behind it, and Nakashima is finally able to score with some effective knees. Both Nakashima and Padilla dodge spinning attacks, the former eventually landing a back fist. More low kicks are met with counter punches, and Nakashima finds himself on the defense against the ropes and in the corner. Padilla sinks a 1-2 combo and several single strikes before the bell. Round 3. A mighty low kick from Padilla leads to a slip in the opening seconds, then another. The fighters breach each other's defenses with dual straights, but a countering overhand sends Nakashima into the corner, and Padilla sinks a stinging back fist. Nakashima increasingly relies on low kicks, but Teddy holds up well and knocks Masahiko against the ropes with a spinning back kick. Round 4. Low kicks are repeatedly traded for punches, but by now Nakashima seems to be landing more clean hits. Masahiko shows a lot of resilience against the America's strikes to the head and face, and he minimizes counterattacks by backing up as soon as he's thrown a kick. A couple of back fists from Padilla don't land strongly, but a 2-punch combo does. Another back kick lands before the round ends, and it seems like the fighters have finally earned each other's respect. 5th and final round. The boxers circle with more low kicks and punches, but very little lands until after the first 90 seconds. A left hook puts Nakashima on the defensive, and he continues to take strikes whenever he lets Padilla get too close. In the final seconds, Nakashima is able to land a left roundhouse kick to the head, but it's not enough to put Teddy down before the bell rings. The match is over. The verdict goes to the judges and a split decision is announced in favor of Teddy Padilla, and he becomes the new world champion. This was a deceptively competitive match. The crowd voiced their displeasure at one of the judges scoring the bout in Masahiko Nakashima's favor, but I will at least agree that the fight wasn't as one-sided as it initially seems. Nakashima took a lot of damage and wasn't nearly as adept as his opponent at mixing fists and feet, but he made a sensible decision to hang back and fight from a distance. There were times when he may have outpointed his adversary with low kicks alone. Of course, there's no denying that Teddy Padilla put forth the greater effort, demonstrating superior poise and skill and definitely earning his title. He'd fight for the ISKA World Super Bantamweight Championship later this decade and competed until at least the year 2000. It's time for the only women's match of the card, for the UKF World Bantamweight Championship. It's Brenda Rouse versus Yuri Matsuda. Matsuda weighs 110 pounds, has a record of 11-1 with 7 knockouts, and is the All Japan Bantamweight champion. Rouse is 108 pounds, is undefeated in 12 matches with 7 knockouts, and enters as the defending champion. I believe she's a protege of Dale Cook, in which capacity she may be among the most successful female fighters he's coached. She's all about kickboxing at this point but would eventually move on to a career in professional boxing. Round 1. Matsuda opens with low kicks but Rouse fires back with punches. She wades in defensively, coming forward with combinations when openings present themselves. Matsuda takes several punches to the face but still sinks a spinning back fist. Rouse continues pushing inward and knocks her opponent back with a front kick. Round 2. Matsuda catches several hooks to the face as she circles, unwilling to meet Rouse at close range. She sinks a spinning back kick but takes a particularly rough hook against the ropes. A front kick to the face makes Matsuda resort to boxing out of desperation, but she's outmatched by her opponent. Matsuda loses her balance following a low kick, and she pays for it dearly by taking a flurry of punches as she rises. Yuri is literally beaten around the ring and falls just as the round ends, allowing Brenda to score a knockdown. Round 3. Matsuda fights backing up, managing to hit some counter strikes before Rouse lays in against the ropes and in the corner. More punches from Rouse land as Matsuda tries not to get pinned down, but she appears to tire and halves her speed within moments. She finds herself in the corner again, standing up admirably against Rouse's still destructive punches but not managing to effectively retaliate. Round 4. Rouse blocks a back fist and Matsuda attempts to maintain distance by moving laterally. A roundhouse kick to the face from Rouse lands, as does an uppercut when Matsuda bounces off the ropes. There's a fleeting moment of hope for Matsuda as Rouse is caught in the ropes, but the American promptly returns to the offensive and lands a kick to the abdomen, followed by several unprotected punches to the face. As the fifth and final round looms, Brenda Rouse takes a preemptive victory lap around the ring and Yuri Matsuda almost falls over on her way to her corner. There seems very little that the challenger can do, having been utterly outmatched throughout the fight. It would seem that the best she could manage is to avoid a knockout and end the bout on her feet. Round 5. Matsuda backpedals again while Rouse keeps coming forward with punches. A hard combination lands in the corner, and it's all Matsuda can do to spin away from subsequent attacks. Rouse very nearly lands a rabbit punch while her opponent's back is turned, but Matsuda remains on her feet for the remainder of the round, taking punch after punch but refusing to go down. The judge's decision is a foregone conclusion. Brenda Rouse receives a unanimous verdict with all officials giving her the victory by a margin of at least 4 points. She remains the world champion. This is by far the most one-sided match of the night, the most surprising aspect of which being Matsuda's suffering only a single knockdown. Rouse seized the advantage and never relinquished it, demonstrating to the rest of her teammates an effort to aspire to. Rouse commenced her pro boxing career 2 years later, in which capacity she became the IBA World Minimum Weight and Flyweight champion. Her last match was in 2005. With the event halfway over, we've reached the odd match out, wherein Greg Douglas and Yoshihisa Yamamoto contend for Douglas's UKF World Cruiserweight Jujitsu Championship. The rules of the bout are comparable to the style of early mixed martial arts practiced by the Fighting Network Rings promotion, allowing for strikes, grappling and submissions. The fighters aren't wearing gloves and therefore may only employ open-handed strikes to the head and face, but knees, elbows and headbutts are allowed. Yamamoto is announced as 185 pounds and holding a perfect record of 17-0 with 13 knockouts. This is at best an exaggeration, as he had only ever worked for Rings, whose matches didn't become fully unscripted until the following year. The database Sherdog doesn't list Yamamoto as having a legitimate match before 1995, but Yamamoto had trained under MMA pioneer Akira Maeda since at least 1991. With great upper body strength thanks to his background in judo, he's probably the strongest Japanese member of the Rings roster, and on this basis alone can't be taken lightly. The champion Douglas is 188 pounds and announced as having a record of 11-0-1 with 8 knockouts. His career is even more difficult to quantify, as there's very little information or footage of him readily available. What I do know is that he has an amateur wrestling background, competed in a karate match at the Second Martial Arts Olympics, and had been cast in supporting roles in several of Dale Cook's action movies. It's difficult to know what to expect from him, but with Yamamoto probably wondering the same thing, this air of mystery could work in Greg's favor. Round 1. The match opens with low kicks, but it's not long before Yamamoto brings things to the canvas with an attempted rolling heel hook. Douglas blocks it and ends up on top of his opponent, but fails to cinch a full Nelson before the fighters are stood up. Yamamoto comes in with kicks and body strikes, and Douglas fights back with a knee. Yamamoto hits an illegal punch to the jaw, and Douglas returns the favor before both are admonished by the referee. Several knees are exchanged in the clinch before Yamamoto attempts the heel hook again. It's more successful than last time, but he can't apply the submission before the bell rings. Round 2. Yamamoto lands some hard low kicks before Douglas grabs him behind the neck. Another heel hook is blocked and Douglas locks onto Yamamoto's back again. He fights hard to apply a rear naked choke, at one point even illegally pulling Yamamoto's hair, but it comes to nothing. He instead begins laying in with punches to the body to loosen his opponent's defense, but again the fighters are stood up before anything can happen. A failed headlock takeover by Yamamoto puts him in the same situation as before, with Douglas now using his elbows on his midsection. Yamamoto escapes by almost crawling out of the ring, but contrary to Ring's rules, this isn't penalized in any way, and Yamamoto attempts one more failed heel hook before the bell. Round 3. Body strikes are exchanged before Douglas grabs Yamamoto for some knees and then an attempted headlock takeover. Yamamoto escapes but can't capitalize before Douglas is back on his feet. He loses his footing in a clinch and once more finds himself with the American on his back. His proximity to the ropes continues to make it difficult for Douglas to apply any kind of hold, Yoshihisa having made a conscious decision to keep the fight as far away as possible from the center of the ring. Yamamoto lands some knees when the fighters are vertical again, and seemingly tries to keep the match upright rather than lock up again with the wrestler. He's forced into it, and even though he manages to get Douglas onto his shoulder with a headlock, Greg promptly resumes the dominant position and pounds on his midsection. With the match now more than halfway over, it's fair to call this a frustrating bout. We've seen the most action when the fighters are on their feet, but they've spent most of their time on the mat. Greg Douglas has demonstrated marginally better grappling skill, but their mutual tendency to end up in the same stalemated position has made this an indecisive contest. Round 4. Kicks are exchanged before Douglas fights his way out of a headlock. Then, there's a moment of genuine danger when, while attempting the rolling heel hook, Yoshihisa Yamamoto falls flat onto his head and neck. Despite having narrowly avoided catastrophic injury, he finds no respite as Douglas drives his elbows into his side again, and it's hard to blame Yamamoto when he crawls under the ropes for another breakage. The fighters are on their feet for mere moments before locking up, and once again, the headlock doesn't avail Yamamoto. He tries to roll through, leading to Douglas pounding his kidneys all the more. Douglas seems to be actively restraining his opponent from trying to escape the ring, holding him around the torso while laying in with elbows to the back. Round 5. Low kicks start things off again, Douglas being the initiator while Yamamoto seeks the clinch. Again, a headlock takeover leads to nothing. Douglas is visibly frustrated with his opponent as he tries to force him into a workable position, at one point pounding on Yamamoto with both hands and attempting a choke as the judoka crawls out of the ring. On their feet, the fighters exchange blows and are admonished again for punches to the face. Douglas protects his throat as he clinches again, but the bell rings before he can do anything. The match is over. The judges deliver a majority decision in favor of Greg Douglas, who retains his championship. However, the on-screen graphics inform us that this result was overturned to a no contest, following protests from the ring's promotion, which Yamamoto was representing. I've never said this before in one of these retrospectives, but this just isn't a good match, regardless of whether it's judged as a spectacle or pure competition. The overturned verdict, likely due to poor enforcement of the ring's rules, is merely the final degradation following all of the fouling, the repetitious fight structure, the poor quality of grappling, and the evasive conduct by one of the competitors. I'm a fan of Yoshihisa Yamamoto, but between his almost complete lack of success in applying takedowns, his overuse of escapes, and the fact that he almost killed himself using one of his favorite moves, this is one of the very worst efforts of his career. Greg Douglas comes out looking a little better, given his greater willingness to engage on the canvas, but the fact that Yamamoto was able to totally stifle any grounded action doesn't speak favorably for the American's own grappling ability, not when other fighters would be able to out-wrestle and submit Yamamoto in years to come. Perhaps Douglas had indeed enjoyed better fights of this sort, but this one was frustrating to watch, almost from the very beginning. I don't know what became of Douglas, but Yamamoto's fighting career lasted another 18 years. He remained with rings until 2001, after which he had stints in the Pride and Heroes organizations. His reputation was spotty, as he was largely regarded as a fighter who wasn't prepared to live up to his potential. Nevertheless, his combat skills improved, and though championship titles eluded him, he secured notable victories over the likes of Tsuyoshi Kosaka and Valentine Overeem, as well as a spectacular but controversial knockout of Mark Kerr. Depending on the source, his MMA record is as low as 14-25 or as high as 42-41. We've reached the main event, and I'm happy to say that this is almost guaranteed to be a major improvement over the previous match. In a contest for the UKF World Super Middleweight Championship, Manson Gibson takes on an old rival in Taro Minato. Minato, born Yoshiharu Toshiro, arrives weighing 159 pounds and with a record of 17-1-1 with 14 knockouts. He's announced as the UKF International Middleweight Champion, but has also held the MAJKF Middleweight title since 1992. Minato is something of an unsung hero from this period in kickboxing, having done much to help repopularize Muay Thai in his home country as a dominant national champion. He was one of the original members of Satoru Sayama's Super Tiger Gym in the 80s, but has found a new home as the star of the Yamaki Boxing Gym. His single loss came at the hands of Manson Gibson himself, about 17 months prior, and he's looking to redeem himself. Gibson is 164 pounds, has a record of 41-4-1 with 27 knockouts, and is the reigning champion. The man known as the Black Bruce Lee is nowadays the ultimate cult name in kickboxing, having been widely recognized as one of the most naturally talented fighters of all time. His flashy fighting style has dazzled opponents and fans alike in America and Japan, and he's held at least 3 additional world titles between the WKA, kick and shoot boxing promotions. This rematch is well-founded, as not just a shot at redemption for Minato but as a demonstration of Gibson's esteem for his opponent. Following his previous decision victory over the Tiger, Manson had declared Taro the toughest opponent of his career, particularly praising his powerful kicks. Despite building his reputation on defeating Muay Thai practitioners, the famously awkward Gibson had been surprised by Minato's own unconventional tactics, with Minato employing Thai techniques but utilizing them in a manner more in line with traditional Japanese kickboxing. It will be interesting to see how the fighters handle each other this second time around. Round 1. Minato strikes first with a low kick and Gibson responds with his trademark spinning heel kicks. He connects with dual side kicks, one to the face and another to the torso. Minato avoids a spinning back fist and partially blocks a back kick to the abdomen. He avoids subsequent side kicks but takes an overhand against the ropes. He unbalances Gibson with a countering kick and partially connects with a mid kick, then hits a left hook to the face. A right straight partially connects, but Gibson ducks out of the way of an overhand. Round 2. Both fighters avoid each other's big strikes, then the action briefly stops as Gibson gets caught in the ropes. Taro exchanges an overhand for a low kick. Gibson takes a Superman punch to the head and the fighters topple over in a clinch. They get up and Gibson maintains the distance with side kicks, landing another to the face. His spin kick is partially blocked, Minato sinks a retaliatory mid-kick, and Manson throws a roundhouse of his own. The fighters lock up and Gibson seemingly tries to wrest Minato over the ropes as his opponent throws knees. A front kick keeps Minato from closing the distance, then punches are exchanged before another clinch. With 2 rounds down, this is feeling similar to their previous match. Gibson's lightning-fast strikes are doing him much good, but Minato is effectively fighting from the middle distance where Manson is most vulnerable. Gibson is also doing his utmost to negate the clinch as soon as Taro and he lock up, but Minato is strong enough to keep from being completely manhandled and his knee strikes could yet do him much good if he manages to sink them. Round 3. Minato dodges a back kick, then neutralizes a back fist with a low kick. Gibson fails to land an overhand and Minato lands a clinching knee. Minato hits some more effective knees in the clinch, driving Gibson to apply a headlock to force a break. A front kick is traded for a low kick. More knees from Minato fly in the clinch and Gibson is forced to fight back with body strikes. Then, in an instant, it's over. Gibson throws a low kick, Minato retaliates with an attempted right straight, but Manson comes back with a left hook that lands flush and immediately renders his opponent unconscious. The referee doesn't even bother administering the count. Manson-Gibson wins and retains his title, 2 minutes and 32 seconds into the 3rd round, and Taro Minato must come to terms with the first knockout of his career. This was an exciting match and a worthy main event. It underlines Team USA's overall success of the night, progressing American kickboxing beyond the time when Japanese fighters could expect to easily defeat their Western opponents. Minato wasn't an easy adversary and he played to his strengths, but Gibson had learned from their first bout and effectively drew his opponent into an unguarded position for the most spectacular win on the show. Taro Minato recovered from his loss, and 6 months later he secured probably the most significant victory of his career by decisioning international Muay Thai champ Orlando Veit in his K1 debut. 21 months afterwards, he finally became a world champion. However, superstar opponents remained his stumbling block, and he lost high-profile bouts to Ramon Dekkers, Kung Lee and Tai Ai Kin. Following a mixed martial arts career in the new millennium, He retired from all competition in 2006 and worked as a kickboxing coach in Tokyo. Tragically, he died after a short illness in 2018, at age 46. Manson Gibson continued to carve out a legacy as one of the most exciting fighters of all time. He collected wins over the likes of Luke Verhey, Maurice Travis and Dale Cook protégé Rath White. He earned his nickname, the Thai Killer, with victories over Muay Thai legends Chongpuk Kyotsongrit and Koban Lukchao Mei Saitong. He remained conspicuously absent from most of the major K1 and shoot boxing tournaments, but nevertheless secured at least 12 world title reigns during a career exceeding 3 decades. He retired after 2009, with a reported record of 103, 14 and 2. USA vs. Japan features some interesting matches, but it's best to appreciate these on their own merits rather than as a cumulative event. There's nothing grand or monumental about it in the vein of UFC or Japanese tournaments, but the contests are still worth checking out for the most part. This may be the first time that Japanese kickboxing and MMA rules were observed in the United States, giving the fights an additional level of significance. I don't know of any other events marketed directly under the UKF name, but Dale Cook would continue to run shows through his ACE promotion, wherein he'd continue to experiment with different rule sets and expose the US to international talent. If you're a fan of martial arts content from this era, I recommend checking out matches from these events.